Today, we're diving into a story from the Bible that, honestly, kind of flips our whole idea of victory on its head. We're going to look at how real, lasting rest isn't always found in winning the big battle, but in what you decide to do the day after.
So just think about it for a second. You've just pulled off something amazing, maybe an impossible win against all odds. What's the plan? Pop the champagne? Take a long vacation? Well, in the book of 2 Chronicles, we meet this king, King Asa, who's in that exact spot. He's just won a miraculous battle against a literal million-man army. But his victory parade gets interrupted.
So as King Asa is riding high on his victory, a prophet shows up. And you'd think he'd be there for a high five, right? A way to go, king. But nope. He delivers this really serious, almost jarring warning. It's a message that pretty much says, hey, that battle you just fought, that was the easy part. The real fight is just getting started, and it's inside your own kingdom. And here it is, the core of that warning, right from 2 Chronicles chapter 15, verse 2. The Lord is with you when you are with him. If you seek him, he will be found by you. But if you forsake him, he will forsake you. This totally sets the stage. It's making it crystal clear that this relationship is a two-way street. Yesterday's victory doesn't automatically buy you tomorrow's blessing. For King Asa, the real work was just beginning. So what was the big problem? Why sound the alarm right after a huge win? Well, the prophet then basically gives a diagnosis of the spiritual sickness that had been making Israel fall apart for years, a sickness that led to complete and utter chaos. And we get that diagnosis in verse 3. He says, the chaos wasn't because of a weak military or a bad economy. No. The prophet points to 3 things that were missing. 3 spiritual pillars: no true God, no teaching priests, and no law. This was the very root of why their society was breaking down.
And this points to this huge idea we're going to call divine order. Think of it like the spiritual architecture for a healthy nation or a healthy life. You've got the true God at the very top as the ultimate source of everything. Then you have teaching priests to guide the people, and holding it all together is God's law. When that structure is solid, peace is just the natural outcome.
And I mean, you can just see the difference here, right? It's night and day. With that divine order, you have clarity, you have guidance, you have a moral compass. But when you take those things away, you get a vacuum. And that vacuum doesn't get filled with some kind of peaceful freedom, it gets filled with chaos. And the results are, well, they're brutal. The Bible is really blunt about it. Without this divine order, life wasn't just a little bit harder. It says people had no peace, and that nations were literally crushed by one another. The absence of order isn't some neutral state. It is actively destructive. Okay, so this leads to a really fascinating question. The Bible says that it was in their trouble that they turned back to God. Why? Why does it so often take hardship to trigger a spiritual wake-up call? It's a question we've all probably wondered about. Why does it take a crisis for us to finally look up and seek God? Well, the text here gives us a really profound answer, and it has everything to do with the kind of relationship God has with his people. This brings us to this incredible idea we might call the traction of the covenant. It's this thought that for God's people, hardship isn't just random, meaningless suffering. It can actually be an act of love, like a divine pull, a spiritual friction that's designed to stop you from sliding off the road and to draw you back to where you're supposed to be.
So this is the key takeaway, right? For the people of Israel, all that chaos and trouble they were in, it was actually a sign that God hadn't forgotten them. It was his way of saying, hey, you've lost your way. The order is broken. Come back home. It's a tough kind of mercy, for sure, but it's a corrective call to return to the only place you can find real peace.
Now, King Asa, he heard this message, and he didn't just nod along. He took it completely to heart. He acted, and his response led to one of the biggest spiritual cleanups in Judah's history, and it has a ton to teach us today. Asa's response was all in. He didn't just tidy up a bit, he tore down all the idols. He repaired the altar, the center of worship. He got the whole nation together to publicly recommit to seeking God. But then, look at that last step. He removed his own mother, Queen Maacah, from her position of power because she was pushing idol worship. That's intense. It showed that his loyalty to God was absolute, even more important than his closest family ties. So what happened after all that? What was the result of this wholehearted return to divine order? Well, verse 15 gives us this beautiful answer. They sought God eagerly, and he was found by them. So the Lord gave them rest on every side. And this isn't just about the fighting stopping. The Hebrew word here is nuach. It means a deep, settled, foundational rest. It's the kind of peace that only comes when you're properly aligned with God. Now, Asa's story is amazing, that in Christian theology, it's seen as a shadow pointing to an even greater reality. See, Asa put the pieces of divine order back together, God, priest, and law, but he could only do it imperfectly, and it didn't last forever. Jesus is seen as the perfect fulfillment of all of it. He is the true God, the perfect high priest, and the living law, all wrapped up in one person. Asa sacrificed his relationship with his mom. Christ sacrificed his own life. Asa brought a temporary rest. Christ offers an eternal, perfect nuach. And that brings this whole ancient story right into our living rooms. Asa's biggest test, the thing that proved his commitment, was dealing with Maacah, the thing closest and dearest to him that was out of order. So that forces us to ask ourselves, what's the Maacah in my life? What treasured thing, maybe even a good thing, have I put in God's rightful place, and it's messing up my own divine order? And a Maacah isn't always some big, obvious sin. It can be our career, our obsession with our reputation, our total reliance on financial security. It could even be a key relationship that we've put ahead of our relationship with God. It's really just anything we're not willing to submit to His perfect order.
So here's the bottom line. That deep, settled rest that we are all searching for, that nuach, it isn't found by finally getting rid of all our problems. It's found in the presence of God's perfect order. It's about putting the true God back on the throne of our lives. Because when that divine order is restored, true rest always follows.